Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Today, it's an absolute pleasure to host Jonny Brownlee. He's an absolute legend of the sport. Completed the Triple Crown, bronze at London 2012, silver at Rio 2016, and then gold at Tokyo 2021 in the mixed team relay. Got all three medals. He's now stepped up to racing some more middle distances. Well, I think so. We'll find out a bit more as the chat goes on, but he's just coming off the back of second place at Challenge Gran Canaria. Bit of a jack of all trades at the moment because I saw you race in the Super League esports, which is like as short as you can get. Now you race a middle distance, probably Ironman in the future, is there?
Not Ironman for a little bit, but no, I think my philosophy, that's very cliche, but my next few years, I'm enjoy it. I don't know how many more years I've got left in the sport, maybe 2, maybe 3. But I'm just doing races that I want to do. And my philosophy is every race that I'm going to do, I want to be on the start line. So I did the Super League indoors. That was a bit of a shock on the first 200 meters of the swim. The guy next to me did 20 meters underwater, and I think so. 158 for 200 meters long course, and I was a bit like, whoa, what am I letting myself into here? But I pulled it back on the bike and I ran.
What did you swim the 200 meters in then, long course for that?
I think in the heats about a 208, 207, 208. Obviously, it's not the fastest because it's non-drafting on the bike. So it ended up being in the heats, a 30-minute effort, and the bike being a 45-minute. In the time I was being a 45-minute effort. So for me, if I went out and say swam a 202, 203, not even sure I've got it in me, but if I could, then my drop off on the bike would be massive. Whereas if I keep it at that kind of level, I can then get on the bike and actually push it. So basically, the swimming there was about keeping it at the level before you really blow up. But people are different athletes. I've kind of noticed that with the younger guys and training with the younger guys. I just don't I've never really had that effort, but I definitely don't have that kind of 200 meter absolutely max out effort. And the young guys can do it, and then they end up I can't walk for a few hours afterwards. Whereas I'm ready to go about 20 seconds later.
What would you just feel like you recover quite quick? So it's like they might be a bit quicker than you, like 3 or 4 seconds, but you could just keep banging out. You're like a Porsche, if you can do a quarter of a mile or a launch, you can keep launching, whereas the other guys are like Teslas. They got one good one in them and then they need to recharge. They're a bit like that.
Absolutely, definitely. Say 5 200 is really hard in the pool, and my fastest one would probably be my last one, whereas everyone else's fastest one would be the first one. It'd be a slow decline, and for me, it makes no difference really if I have more than 30 seconds rest. If it's 30 seconds rest or 2 hours rest, it makes no difference for me. That's my engine. And that's what I've kind of realized, I've got to use that, and I don't have that explosive power. I never really have had it, but I definitely don't have it now.
How do you manage to make the lead group then in like ITU racing, where like sometimes the boys like 200 or 300 meters out and everyone's like balls out, because you and your brother are so consistent with like making the lead splits? Like I literally never see you miss a front pack. Like how do you manage to do it? Is it just skills, or is it just the fact that after 200 meters that, the first boy, they're a bit gassed and you just swim up the outside? Or like how does it normally go for you then in like one of those kind of races?
Yeah, a bit all of that. I think firstly, I'm a far better open water swimmer than I'm a pool swimmer. So my turns, if anyone's seen, are absolutely horrendous. So I actually, I'm quite good in open water compared to pool. And also, I rely completely after everyone getting to the first buoy and then blowing up a little bit. So quite often I tell myself, whatever happens at the first buoy, I'm never going to be more than 10 seconds behind at worst, and I can swim back up on the next bit of the swim. So I just then get to the first buoy, try and recover for 5 6 seconds, and then go and swim around just swim past everyone. It's all that second bit of the swim for me. I know that my worst position in the swim is probably going to be about 200 meters in. Then after that, it's all about swimming past people. I think skills definitely do help. And, I kind of think of it as a cycle group of if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. So even in open water, so you constantly think about moving past people, taking a good line, swimming through the group when you want to shelter, resting when you want to go past people, sometimes swimming on the outside. But I think I rely on basically everyone going out too hard and blowing up, and then I come past everyone.
And you try and swim through the middle of the groups, dear, because that is fucking nuts, isn't it, in there? Like the amount of time I get absolutely pummeled, like, and I'm just trying to stay in the middle, let alone move up through it. Like,
Yeah, definitely. Well, it depends on the situation. So I know for well, if it's lined out and there's five people swimming across each other, if I take the outside route, the outside person they might try and hit me and fight me and beat me
Yeah.
up. Whereas if I can just go straight through the middle of the people, they don't have time to respond, and before you know it, you're through them. You wiggled your way through. I think of myself as a little fish, kind of wiggling my way through the whole pack, and then just keep moving forward and keep moving forward until you can't see anyone in front of you.
That is such a skill in itself, isn't it? Because I kind of feel like when I get in a group, that's it. I'm just kind of stuck there, and like I might move past the odd person, but I'm really bad at like because they get quite violent, don't they? And I find like I kind of like give positions away too easily, if you know what I mean. Whereas like you got to stand your ground, haven't you? Sometimes, or quite a bit in the swims, and like hold people's feet because people are trying to push you off all the time, aren't they? And do all kinds of things to you.
Yeah, you definitely got to stand your ground, but that's actually quite interesting as well. In the slowest, obviously the fastest way for everyone to swim would be in a straight line. But if you're swimming next to someone and slowing each other down, there actually comes a point where you might want to let that person go in front of you, and then you get on their feet, and then you actually swim faster. Because if you swim next to each other, you might actually lose a feet. But yeah, open water swimming is just a skill, and I'd love to say that I practice it, but obviously I'm the same as you. In the UK, we basically can only swim open water for about 2 months in the year. I think I'm very lucky that as a youngster, I raced French Grand Prix racing. I actually remember my first World Junior Championships was in Lausanne, the one that Alistair won. Was it 2006? And it was back in the day when basically if you entered a junior to a race, they get a start. So there's actually too many people on the start line, so we couldn't dive off the pontoon. We had to start in the water. There's about 110 juniors doing a sprint distance race. And I don't think I took a stroke to the first boy. It was just fighting. French
What?
Grand Prix racing was very, very similar. Our first race of the year used to be in Dunkirk. And that was always famous for a fight for the first boy. So I think I had to learn the skills. Otherwise, I just got left behind. And also, I've got to feel this as well. And the same with cycling is I was quite late to get my growth spurt. So I trained with people obviously similar to my age, and obviously Alistair, and they were better than me because they were a bit stronger than me, and I just had to get away with being technically good. So that involved holding the wheel, taking corners fast, knowing how to save energy while doing chain gang, and the same with open water swimming. Those guys were faster than me, so I had to learn and I just have to be clever.
Going back to like you said, like 2006, and like probably even earlier than that, when you first like got into tri, was Alistair already doing triathlon then? Is that what made you do it, or did you both start like at the same age?
Yeah, so I actually started triathlon when I was about 6 years old. We're kind of one of the first generations of triathletes to come through that did it from being so young. But obviously, you don't start triathlon still going, I'm going to be a triathlete. I used to swim at the local swimming club. I used to run at school. My uncle did triathlon. He just happened to be into it. I remember going and watch him do the Yorkshire Dales triathlon, which is in this beautiful lake called Water. The first bit of the bike must be 30%. It was funny watching people not being able to get the shoes in and be able to cycle up this hill. Then you ran up a hill at the end, and I remember watching my uncle do it. I think, wow, that's amazing. Then Alistair signed up for a local triathlon. The year later, I did one, but it was just one of those things that we did. I didn't at that point. I wasn't a triathlete. I swam, biked, and ran. Also, a lot of my training was done we swam after school. I used to bike to school and just 45, 50 minutes to school, run at lunchtime, then swim after school. But I play football, rugby, cricket, and then you kind of go through that stage of one by one they fall away. So I remember, and that's kind of practically they fall away. I remember we used to run on a Saturday morning, so I stopped playing rugby, and then as running got more serious, as I got to kind of 13, 14, I couldn't play football anymore because football training was on a Friday night, and that meant that I wouldn't get picked for the team on Sunday. So I couldn't play football. So one by one they fell away, and then I was left with triathlon, and but we still competed cross country quite high level. Even when I was going into 2012 Olympics, I did inter-counties where in April or March that year, and came fourth or fifth in inter-counties cross country. So we still carried on to those, but yeah, I would say I knew I wanted to be a triathlete when I qualified for the World Junior Championships in Lausanne. So in 2006, Alistair actually won it. I crashed on the first corner on my bike, and then had to walk back with my bike and watching Alistair come first. And then another big moment for me was when Alistair won we did win, so qualified for Beijing in 2008. And I remember being in the stands watching Alistair in 2008, thinking, wow, this is massive. If Alistair can do that, I can do it as well.
When did you start training properly? Then, like, where you'd actually say, like, seriously, like, how old were you then?
I would say I started training for triathlon properly. 15, 16, really. A big moment for me was, so I was quite serious, as serious as you can be from 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
And then at the age of about 13, I wasn't so much into triathlon anymore. I got to a stage where I found swimming a little bit boring.
Yeah.
We'd rather be doing other sports. And then a cross-country race to school, someone else in my school very nearly beat me.
Yeah. Who was
and
it?
that was the first time. A guy called Adam Smallwood.
Does he still do it
actually,
or anything?
No, he doesn't do it anymore. No, he's actually diving coach for British Diving now.
Oh, right.
Up in Scotland. But he actually very nearly beat me. And that was a big turning point for me because I've been the best at school for so long. And then I remember calling into a sports shop on the way home and saying to my dad, right, I'm going to do this properly. I'm going to cycle to school with Alistair now. So he bought me a cycling bag to cycle to school. And then from that moment on, used to say you're 13, I cycled to school with Alistair. Initially, Alistair, I don't think he liked it so much because he had a younger brother kind of tagging on, tried to drop me all the time.
Was he trying to drop you on the way to school?
We'll be cycling to school with like, school books in the back and he'd dodging the puddles on a canal towpath, and Alistair would try and drop me. I remember another time, Alistair, we were cycling to school, and at that point I hadn't fixed punches at home but not out on the road. And I remember Alistair getting a puncher, but he was late for a lesson, and just saying, right, fix my wheel, I'm taking your wheel, and cycled off. And that was the first time I fixed a puncher outside in the wild, and we're getting the canal. It's one of the days where you had to get the tube out, you had to find the hole, you dip it in the canal, find where the air was coming out, then patch it up, and then cycle to school. So but yeah, I'd say 13, 14, and then I made a real conscious effort. So I qualified for Great Britain to race in a race in Belgium, and then you qualify for the European Youth Relays, which the first one I did was in Croatia. That must have been 2005. And then, like I say, the World Junior Champs I qualified for in 2006, and that was massive for me. That was the World Junior Champs in 2006 was the first race that I really focused for and learned about training for a course. I remember in Lausanne, I went up a hill and thinking about that. But up to that point, it was just about, I guess, just all-round fitness. And then gradually there, I guess, you take it more and more seriously.
So even when you were like young then, like you said, in that lead up to like Lausanne and around that kind of time was when it sounds like your training got a bit more seriously. How much do you reckon you were training at that kind of age? Was that about 14 then around Lausanne? Would you have been about 14, 15, something like that?
16 Lausanne. And obviously during school time, it's slightly different, but during school time, I would cycle into school on a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So it would be 45 minutes in. I would try and get a longer bike ride on a Wednesday afternoon because school finished early on Wednesday afternoon. So that may be like 3 hours on a Wednesday afternoon. And then another 3-hour bike ride, probably Saturday and Sunday as well, another 3 hours each day. So ends up being, so what's that, a riding 9 hours plus a bit more, so 12 hours. Ran every day at lunchtime. Started to add sessions in when I was about 16 years old.
You said at lunchtime then, like, you'd run. Like, would that be a case of like a load of the other kids would be like playing around at school and stuff like that, like playing football at lunch or getting their food and that, and you and Al would just like get it changed into your like running gear and you'd be like hitting a session on the fields or something like that? Like,
pretty much that. Yeah. So we were very fortunate that our lunch hour was about an hour 10, so you could get a decent running and get some lunch. There's a decent running club, at our school, Bradford Grammar School. Richard Aroka, Emil Caress came from our school, so the school, the school record. So the school marathon records at the moment, I think, Emil's run 2:05 and Aroka's run a 2:08. So they're pretty hard to beat. So those guys came from school. Emil's obviously 5 years younger than me, so I knew of him, but I never trained with him, or maybe more than that. But yeah, we used to go out and go for a run at lunchtime, and yeah, occasionally I did feel a bit like that kind of weird kid. I was actually talking to someone about that at the moment. It's a completely different world nowadays. I could leave school, I could run around Bradford in the local forest. It was
Yeah.
actually a way of going and exploring around Bradford. No one really knew where I was going. Obviously, I knew I was safe. We'd come back and get school lunch. So it's actually quite a nice thing to be able to get to school grounds. And I missed out on playing football and with my friends. I'd love to do that. But one thing would make it way harder now is all the social media side of it.
Yeah.
They'd see me going out for a run in my short shorts, and you'd probably get abused on social media and
Yeah.
things like that at school. Whereas I never had any of that. It was just, he's going for a run, and people forgot about it 10 seconds later and thought about playing football. So, if I hadn't, and I was saying with cycling to school, we used to, on the final few minutes to school up the hill, everyone used to get off the train and walk up and used to cycle past them. And no one cared. It was just what I did. But nowadays it would be, be all over Snapchat or something, wouldn't it? Look at that
Do you
guy
think it would be
in his
worse
Leica.
now? That people would do you think it would be worse and not more socially accepted because people have got more into like triathlon and running and stuff like that? Or do you think it would actually be worse because people would be putting it out there and they'd have a bit of a laugh kind of thing? Because no one could.
I think I think it's better and it's more socially accepted, more norm, and the kind of fitness. We see running London Marathon, it's an amazing thing at the moment. But I think on the other side of that is it's so hard nowadays to be different and stand out because, when I was at school, being different, you can move, you get away with it. But people being different now, it gets put all over social media. You do get bullied a little bit. So on that side, it can get harder. And then also there's the other side of it, of all the health and safety. No one ever checked on a register that I got in and got back. It was just, if I hadn't turned up for a few hours after lunchtime, someone probably got a bit worried.
How far were you running then at lunchtime then?
Anywhere up to an hour or 70 minutes. So, and if you had a free period beforehand, it would be an hour and a half sometimes.
Would it?
And it's very much so. We very, very rarely did sessions until that probably last bit for all the World Junior Champs. I just ran basically.
Would you do it every day?
I didn't understand. I didn't. No. Yeah, it would be every day. Monday, Tuesday. Wednesday, so even Wednesday sometimes I used to run home. Thursday, Friday, every single Monday, Friday, every day. I guess up to an hour of running, but just running. It's for the local forest, and then no GPS watch, no nothing. Just used to go for a run. If I felt tired, I would choose a route where I knew it was on small tracks. If I felt a bit fresher, I'd go on a canal towpath and tick on a little bit more. I had no idea about how far it was. It was just miles, and I had no idea of train load until. Actually, we went on a British Triathlon camp and they gave us a training diary, and I've actually still got some of it. And then I added a track session in. I remember for the first few weeks, on a Tuesday, I'd still do lunchtime and then do a track session in the evening. And I wondered why I was tired. I had no idea.
And you were cycling to school as well on a Tuesday, weren't you?
By that point, if I was doing a track session, by that point, I wouldn't be cycling to school on a Tuesday, but I would do it every other day. Because I knew if I had a track session in the evening, I wouldn't cycle to school. And also, with cycling to school, I could cycle in the morning, and then we happened to have a really good swim squad, which swam at our school in the afternoon after school, and then my parents would pick us up and take us home, so I didn't have to cycle both ways.
Flipping heck, it sounds like your school was like a training camp.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was one of those. It's one of those things when you look back at it. It's just those things fell into place. We're very fortunate that we could leave our house in Horsforth, just outside Leeds, go on a canal towpath, so it's all off road to Bradford Grammar School. Pretty much, it was safe. We were fortunate that we had a good running squad at Bradford Grammar School with a great teacher, a great heritage of running. And then City Bradford swam at our school for 4:30, so I could get some food after school. Didn't have to go anywhere and go for a swim. And if it hadn't been for all that, I wouldn't have done as much training because practically it would have been impossible.
Fucking hell. The other kids your age were playing on Call of Duty and Gran Turismo, and you were like flipping, like banging in like 20 hours, 25 hours of training a week at school. That is
Tell me about it.
It's incredible though to hear that, because like you had like really good access to great training groups, it sounds like, and also a flexible school where you were allowed to kind of, it sounds like you had the grounds and you could get the training in. I mean, obviously you must have been extremely motivated as well, because there can't be many 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds that are like training like that, can they? Even if they have the time, you've still got to have the motivation, haven't you, when you're tired and stuff like that, to keep it going. Do you think it helped? Because you must have been seeing at that time as well, like, because Al was a couple of years older than you, he was getting some success, and I don't know if he had like good sponsors or whatever at that time, but did you kind of think, like, he's on a really good path here, if I carry on training with him, then that could be me as well?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the sponsors. It was kind of qualifying for races. So I guess that starts off as him qualifying to run for Yorkshire for the first time. and comes back home as Yorkshire best. And I was like, oh yeah, I want to run for Yorkshire. So, I'm going to train over Christmas so I can do well in the Yorkshire Champs. And that means that qualifying me for the categories for country. And then, a massive moment for me, like you go back to, I remember Alistair doing the trial event for the Olympics in 2008 in Beijing. The trial event was in Madrid, and he went on chain gang on Thursday evening, and his bike actually broke. So me and my dad spent the whole evening, because Alistair was getting ready to fly, fixing his bike, and we fixed it. We're not very good mechanics, and then he flew out to Madrid. He qualified for the Olympics for Beijing. And that was like massive for me, because that's when it becomes a whole bigger thing. And that's when you're like, wow, this is real now. And if he can qualify the Olympics, I can do it. I think it's really important to see someone who, because up to that point for me, Olympics and Olympians were kind of too far away for me to even think about being one of them.
Yeah.
I never believe that people, like a 5-6-year-old kid really goes, I want to be Olympian. I can definitely do it. It's so far away. The Sydney Olympics for me, for example, was something that I had to stay up really late to watch, or wake up early, I can't remember what, to watch the triathlon.
I remember that as well, watching that as well, like waking up at like earlier. All the events were like through the middle of the night, weren't they? Like 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff like that, weren't they?
And that made it even feel even further away, because this felt like a completely distant event. And then Athens, obviously a bit different, a bit closer, but still far away. And then to see Alistair do it made me think, well, I can do that as well. Triathlon actually also came closer to home for me when we went to watch the Commonwealth Games in Manchester. Obviously, that came 2002. It would have been, and I remember going to watch that, and also watch the test event for that. And as a little kid, I was waiting at the end of the triathlon with an autograph book, trying to get people to sign it. And I remember one athlete didn't sign it and been absolutely gutted. And that's when I decided afterwards, every single autograph that someone asked me to sign, I'm going to sign. But it felt so far away. And then, but having Alistair qualify for Beijing meant that I saw him cycle to school, do that. I saw him go on a local chain gang and qualifying for Beijing. So that really, really gave me that belief that I could do it as well.
How old were you when Beijing Olympics happened? So that would have been.
I'm easy. So I'm 1990. So I'm 18. Yeah, I was out there watching him. I was actually on something called the 2012 Olympic Ambition Program, which people who had a chance to go into 2012, they took out to Beijing to kind of see how it all works.
So when you were training with your brother in the build-up to Beijing, were you kind of like holding your own a bit against him, like in some of the training sessions? So were you thinking, well, flipping it, like if Alistair's like qualified now for Beijing and I'm holding my own against him in training, like I don't know, was there a lot of difference or not a lot of difference between you physically then? Were you thinking like, if I keep this going for 2012, I can definitely see myself get qualifying now?
I would say at that period we started to actually train quite differently. There's only time because I was still at school and swimming in the squad, and Alistair was swimming with the Leeds Beckett university squad that I was just setting up. So I actually didn't do that much training with him. On chain gang and stuff, I held my own, and bike rides, but it wasn't every day. And then into Beijing, he went on a training camp to Korea, so I didn't actually see much of him that year. At that point, I wouldn't actually do too much together. But then it was a year after that we really did all our training together. And he obviously competed. He was then the world champion. He won the World Series for the first year, and we did everything together. And that's when I thought, if I can stay near him and he's the best in the world, then I'm pretty close.
Going after that then, so when you start doing a lot of training together, like you said, the year after, that was basically when you guys changed the game, wasn't it? You two and Gomez were like on another level. Like, did you... Do you think that kind of brought you on then both? Like you were training together, you were like not 19 then, so you were like, basically you're a man. The difference between you isn't as much as it is like a 13 and a 15-year-old. So were you like pushing each other a bit in training or motivating each other as well? Because you're both getting up together, you're doing it, if you're tired one day and you're there knocking around his house to go on a bike ride, you're committed, aren't you? Whereas when you're by yourself, you can procrastinate a bit, but I guess it made it so much harder when two of you are super motivated. And like, did it feel like you were changing the game when you guys, in that whole 4 years in the lead up to London, like it was absolutely crazy. Like you guys, I watched some of them races this winter, for a bit of like motivation, because I think they were like proper like triathlons, weren't they? You guys like attacked the swim, attacked the bike, attacked the run, and everyone talking about it, like who was in them races, says about how hard you guys made them. So I thought, for a bit different, I'll go back and rewatch some of them this winter while I was on the trainer, and they're absolutely phenomenal. Like, it was so motivating to watch them, and like the stuff what you guys were doing to people, like putting 90 seconds into them in the last 10K of the run, but ripping it up on the bike, and there was proper breakaways, 6 or 7 of you getting off. They're all like flipping, hanging on for dear life on the run, and you guys are just jogging around, and the last bit you're just chatting to each other and stuff, picking up flags, celebrating it. Like, what was that whole experience like, that 4 years, like, if you kind of think back to it now?
Yeah, the 4 years was absolutely incredible. I could talk about cliches, but I guess that 4 years for me, it started off in 2009. I was still a junior. I actually came second in the World Junior Championships. Marion Moller beat me. I was disappointed with that. But in 2010, I had my kind of breakthrough year as a senior, and that was when I thought, wow, I can actually make it to 2012. So I won the World and 23 champs, but I also went to London, the test event in London, and it's the one that Alistair collapsed, and I came through and came second behind Gomez. So that's when I thought, wow, that's World Series, and that's when I thought, well, I can go to 2012 here. I can actually race well as a senior. Then 2011, obviously we qualify for London 2012, and if it goes perfect, and overnight it changes to, right, you're not just a young athlete coming through, you're actually a medal hope, and but it all felt just fun. Every single thing felt fun, and I realise now almost how easy it was. One, because your body felt better than it does now because you're a bit younger, and also I was at a stage there that every single thing that they got thrown at me in training, I would absorb and get better from. And everything felt so easy in so many ways, and it was fun traveling the world, racing with Alistair, taking on the world. I remember in Madrid in 2011, we absolutely nailed the bike. We flew around, and that's where we finished together for the first time. So yeah, I guess the way to answer that is fun, and to have a training partner with you like Alistair, who every day pushed you on. My strength, I believe, is my consistency. I turn up every single session, every single day of the week, and try my best. And that consistency helped Alistair. Always having someone there to push him on. If ever he was having a bad day, I would be there and chasing him down. And we carried that obviously into London 2012, when we probably had the best training we ever trained and everything went perfectly. And I remember we went out to St. Moritz with Richard Wagon, a few training partners, into London 2012. Came back home for a few weeks and knocked some amazing track sessions out, and I went down to London.
So what kind of training were you doing in 2012? When you said like you did like the biggest block of training that you'd done or whatever, most consistent, like roughly how many sessions a week was that, or like how many hours, or was it just the intensity? Was it just like a lot of hard stuff?
And I'd absolutely love to record that, but it was before the days of real kind of GPS stuff and recording and parameters, really. But we, if you look back at it now, I used to run twice on a Monday with a bit of a build run on Monday evening. I used to run twice on a Tuesday, so Tuesday morning. I actually sometimes run twice on a Wednesday. On Thursday, I would run in the morning and then run off the bike for a short run.
So you were doing double
run once on a Friday.
Double
Yeah,
run,
twice on a
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, basically.
Yeah, I'm Saturday, because it was Saturday evening.
And
But we
Saturday.
never really recorded it. Yeah, I can't do that now. I wish I could. Long run on a Sunday, and then hard session, swim session on a Tuesday and a Thursday. I mean, it's easy to run the rest of the days, Monday to Friday, not weekend. Like I said, run session on a Saturday morning, and a long bike ride on a Saturday afternoon and a Sunday morning. So the volume, I bet I was probably running, I'm going to say somewhere 130k a week. I reckon in those days, maybe 120k a week. But easy running was really, really easy. The fast running was done fast. Really intense track sessions. 4 or 5k worth of track sessions. The best one we ever did was when we dropped down from altitude, and it was back in Leeds.
Was this before London? Was this like
before London? Yeah,
this is last few weeks leading into the London games.
Last few weeks, we dropped down from altitude. We're in Leeds. We got 2 weeks to go for London, maybe 10 days, and we did 5 by K. And our slowest one, I think, was a 2:44, something like that. Finished at a 2. We finished at 2:35 or 2:36k.
Really? What recovery would
Um,
you have for something like that then as well?
it was a minute max.
Really?
Uh, yeah. And I still remember Alistair pushing the last K on. We had a training partner with us who obviously been told to run fast, and James Boxall, he always led us out for the first, say, 400, 600 meters. And quite often our coach used to say, 5 by K at 250, knowing full well he'd tell our training partner to push it on to 245. But it just felt so easy that day. And I remember there's about 400 meters to go in the last rep, Alistair trying to kind of push it round and push me and drop me. He's looking over his shoulder, and I'm thinking, you're not getting rid of me here. No way.
Did you come
But
past
that's
him? Did you come past him?
No, I didn't come
at the
past
end?
him.
Were you tempted to?
No. Yeah. But I didn't. But it's in 2016, the last session we did there before the Olympics. It was something like 800, 500, 800, 500, 800, 500, 800, something like that. And the last 800 we finished on. It was a 2:05. I think we finished on, and I remember I led it out, and Alistair kind of came past me, and I was like, okay, and then I kicked and dropped him down the home straight into Rio, and that was another good one. Not quite as good as the K's, but at that point I knew we were flying as well. And after both sessions, it's great to get those kind of sessions done because then, right, okay, I'm ready. Just kind of rest up now.
When you were saying about your run training just before that, and you were saying about all those double runs, would you have run on a Friday as well? So every day you were doing a run, or would Fridays have been a day off, like running?
No, Friday would have been those days when I was younger. We'd call it an easy day, and I'd do a swim in the morning, maybe an open water swim in some areas at that point. A bit of gym, strength and flexibility, and I would still do 50 minutes running, really easy, but 50 minutes running.
Really?
Have the afternoon, and then have the afternoon off. I believe at those points, for me, it was best to keep on moving. Nowadays, obviously, it's completely different. I definitely need those easier days, but I believe to keep on moving was actually more important.
Wow, that's incredible, that amount of run training. Like that's like a pro runner's kind of like amount. I mean, maybe they were doing a little bit more volume in like each individual run, but the frequency of it is mental. Like,
Incredible. And one of the reasons why we probably did it is we didn't have to record it that much. So we never actually really knew.
what, so you just kind of had like a normal standard stopwatch on or something like that, and you just see how long you're running for, and that would be it? Or would you know your routes and you just run the route and it was what it was, you didn't even look?
Stopwatch, but I very rarely had a training diary at that point. British Triathlon tried to make us write down training hours, but basically it was someone gave you a laptop on a Friday and said, how many hours have you done this week? And the same the next week. So you just ended up going. I think I ran 50 minutes on a Monday, and I think I ran 40 minutes in the evening. So that's a bit more, and you have to add it up. So that was it. There's no more than that.
What would you be saying to British Triathlon? Yeah, I did 40 hours a week. Yeah, we did 140k of running, 20 hours. Something that they're like, flipping heck. This is what it takes, boys, to the other.
Yeah. Well, I think at that point, they're very much like, if it works and you're not getting injured, then go for it. And we're not going to get involved. I think when Alistair was definitely starting this idea of this amount of training, they're very much like, that's too much. You'll get injured, you'll burn out, you'll only last out 1 or 2 years. But on that, it's amazing now what I see with what the marathon guys do. Like Emil and Phil Sussman that I see in Lee's training. The amount that those boys can train is just gone through the roof now. And these double sessions of doing like 30k session in the morning and coming back and doing a 20k session in the evening, it's just incredible. Like I know we did a lot of training. I biked as well as that, but I think even now that amount you can train has been moved on. I think shoes have helped that. But the amount the body can tolerate if it's built up to that and it's consistent is incredible. I think consistency is key though. It's just not about throwing in a random 150k week for no reason.
Imagine if you did have carbon shoes back then as well, like how much fresher you would have felt on some of the runs, because like they definitely help, don't they? Especially with the hard runs and like the long runs. I mean, like you could have either kept the same and you would have recovered even better. You would have had like no muscle soreness, or you could have even pushed it like even a bit more, couldn't you? Like it would have been absolutely incredible.
I know. But then I always said that maybe the kind of the lack of carbon shoes was a bit that held you back a little bit, because that soreness is just a bit like, okay, that you keep at that level, don't do too much. And I actually think, you look back at someone else's run times from London 2012 without carbon shoes. I think what they would have been with carbon shoes.
Oh, I thought that as well. Like they would that 10K in London. Was it like a 29:30 or something like that? That was what was recorded or something. It was
Yes,
definitely sub
and we
30.
went through, and it was accurate, and it wasn't fast. It was on a lot of it was on like these boards across the grass and stuff. So yeah, it was. I think we went through 5K in like 14, 15.
Wow.
Incredible. Like
No carbon.
we went, yeah, without carbon. We went out hard with at least one dead zero. So
Go-
yeah,
Going back to St. Moritz, I got told a little story from Stu Hayes. So for the guys that were listening, he's the third member of the London 2012 team, and he was out there training with you guys in St. Moritz, and he said that he's got two stories actually. What he told me, and first
cool, Stewie.
yeah, first one's not actually a bad one but about you, or not. None of either of them are bad really. But the first one, he said that the amount of training that you guys were doing was absolutely crippling him, and he remembers ringing up to his missus Michelle, and he felt like he was almost like crying down the phone because he was doing the swim and bike training with you guys. He said he wasn't even doing the run training, and he was like on the fucking limit. Like he was like, if I carry on doing just a swim and bike train, I might not even make it to 2000. I might not even make it to London, and he just wanted to make it there and take part. But he said that was brutal. And then another story was, he said, and I never knew if this was true, so this would be like confirming it with you, because I've heard it and I'm like, I have no idea whether or not this is true or not. But he said you guys were out one night in St. Moritz having a few drinks and stuff, and it must have been coming towards the end of the training camp, and he said he had like one or two, I think, but not many beers, and then he was like, I need to go home because I'm fucked anyway, and I'm literally hanging on for dear life to like get through this training. And the last thing I want to do is to ill not make it. So he said he headed back. I can't remember if he said you headed back at a similar time to him or just after, but he reckoned that there was like some Yorkshiremen that came into the bar, and Al started like chatting to him and making friends. He stayed out the whole night, got absolutely leathered, doesn't even know what time he came home. Stu reckons he came in like well past midnight. Then the next morning he's up running at like 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning and doing a 6-7 hour training day after a night out on the lash, and like, you know, pre-London 2012. Is that true or not? Like what's
it was the first story I could probably definitely. It was Stewie. He was amazed by my training. I've probably phoned his wife and was like, "Oh, I can't do it anymore." But then the second story is also true. I was a good boy. I went home early. I think it was. I'm going to say it was on a Sunday. Saturday night into a Sunday. I'm going to say it was like 3 or 4 weeks out from London, probably 3 weeks out, because I know reason I know why it's a Sunday, because Stu stayed in bed. And Alistair had got up. I didn't even know until we finished the ride. That's how he's quite good at dealing with that. But and we was young. We did a ride which went over Davos from St. Moritz, goes over to Davos along the valley and back over one of the albular passes and back over St. Moritz. And we did this whole ride. And it's just been a 140k ride. And I didn't even know that Alistair had been out that late. And as we came back up the valley, we saw Stu, who'd been in bed all morning. He riding down the valley to meet us. So Stu hadn't got up for a run. He'd just waited for us to, and he must have already ridden a couple of hours or so, if that. And he came to meet us, feeling very sorry for himself. But you know, maybe Alistair needed that. There's a lot of pressure on him, so
Yeah.
maybe he needed it, and he could absorb it back then. I was definitely a good boy who went home and.
I was just impressed he managed to get up the next day. Stu as well said the weather was like horrific that day as well. Like it was raining and horrible and stuff like that. Like he made it out to
I
sound
can't remember that.
Really?
I think Stu told himself that. I think Stu probably looked out the window.
Skies and sun. Stu was like, I'll shut the curtains and pretend it was raining. It will make me feel a bit better.
Yeah, I can't remember it being raining. I think Stu lied about that bit. But yeah, those days in the St. Moritz camps were brilliant. Obviously, Stu with Varga, some amazing training partners we had, because we kept it fun. And also another thing I've realised as I've got older in my career, and a lot of my training partners have moved on. How lucky I was to have those people around me.
Was it more fun, the training environment that you were in back then, do you think, than what it is now? Because you were all going through it for the first time, and there was such a good group of you, and you were all like around like similar ages, weren't you, and stuff like that. And did it just seem like basically you were just having a laugh with your mates like every day, and your hobby was almost like swim, biking and running, but you're out just like having a bit of banter, taking the piss kind of thing, and it was just like you were doing it while outside in the elements, like that. Is that what it seemed like? Because that's what it seemed like from the outside, like looking in,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. It was brilliant. It was, yeah, I didn't need anything social to do because that was my social, was going out on a bike ride. And then we'd meet each other afterwards for dinner or whatever. And we're going for the first time, so it was all fun. And everything was new. Going to San Ritz for the first time, or, qualifying for the Olympics for the first time. Stu would turn up and wear all his Olympic kit on the first day, really excited like a little school kid. And yeah, no, it was really, really fun. I definitely think as you got a bit older, like I said, there's people who have moved on. And I guess there's people who are not similar age. It's become a bit more of a job. And also I think the training was different back then in that it wasn't so much kind of led and too focused. You would go out and do a chain gang on a Thursday evening and just smash each other. Whereas now it's very much like, oh, well, I've got my own efforts. I'm doing 5 by 6 minutes. I'm
Yeah.
doing 6 by 5 minutes at 340 watts, and I don't do any more than that. Whereas back in the day, it used to just be, right, chain gang starts. We're going to ride up here, turn around and ride back. We might have a few fallouts in the chain gang, or someone rolling through a bit hard, but everyone made up afterwards. So yeah, I think, yeah, I was very much at a good time of it being very simple but very fun training.
But why has it changed so much? Because chain gangs are really good training, aren't they? And they do get you really fit. Why has it changed away from that, where now people will be too stuck into their own limits? Because one thing I think with a chain gang and you do a hard group ride like that, mentally it makes you so much stronger sometimes, because it takes you, like, when you're forced to go through and do a turn and stuff like that, and you're absolutely on the limit and you've got to do it, you do it. And if you, I don't know what kind of numbers you'd push in, like, when you're in the moment and you're doing that, but like if you looked at it afterwards and you were recording it or something, I'm sure you'd be like, wow, I didn't think I had that in me. And like, they always seem to really, like, when I used to do stuff like that and road racing and stuff like that, it always felt like it kind of brought you to a new level. And my cycling used to seem so good. So why has it changed so much that people now think that, like, a chain gang isn't good? Is it just because scientifically it's hard to describe? If you were prescribing that to someone, you'd say, oh yeah, just go out and smash it for an hour with your mates, kind of thing, riding through and off. Do you think that's part of the reason, where it's easier to just say, oh, stick to these numbers? Like, because a good old-fashioned chain gang does used to get people really fit and fast, didn't it?
Oh, definitely I agree. And also it was fun. It was almost like a session where the hard sessions for me are the ones where you stop after every rep and go, right, I've got another 4 to go. Whereas chain gang, you just start, you have to do as many turns as you could and then finish. I get down to that question. I think firstly, I think coaches changed that, because obviously definitely now everyone is coached and has prescribed training that they want to do and they want to follow. And I also think the recording it has changed that, because quite often if you go out and do a chain gang, for an hour, your watts aren't actually that good because it's very polarized. Obviously, you're going really hard for 10 seconds, freewheeling really hard, and that's what actually gets you fit. But you come back and you're like, I did an hour really hard, but I actually only averaged 310 watts. And that felt really hard. And then people don't like to see that. So they almost go away from that and prefer to go out and go and sit at a lot more watts and go, oh yeah, I did an hour at this amount of watts. Look at me. But it's more steady state, so it's actually a lot easier. So I think it all being recorded means that people avoid that. Like, I've seen that with running as well. A lot of people now do very boring runs just along the canal towpath or along the main road because they want it to look good on Strava and don't want anyone to see that they ran 5 minute per K on Strava. They want it to be like 4:20s, and it's like, okay, back in the day we'd never do that. We'd go and run up some hills or whatever and just enjoy running. So I think everything being recorded hasn't helped that.
Yeah. So going back to or just after the London Olympics, like, obviously you and your brother absolutely smashed it. I think that was the first. Am I right in saying it was the first medal event of the 2012 Olympics as well? That triathlon. It was definitely one of them, wasn't it? If not, was it?
No, ours was the second Tuesday. The first medal event was actually was it Cav or Lizzie Armistead on the cycling? It was either male or female. Lizzie was the first medal, so I think it was Cav on the Saturday.
Oh,
Who
right.
didn't, obviously, unfortunately didn't medal, but they gave it a really good job. And then it was the next weekend was the female triathlon, and then ours was the Tuesday after that. So we only had 3 or 4 days left of the Olympics by the time we finished.
Oh, actually, on the Olympics thing, one thing I wanted to talk about was, what was it like staying in the village with all the other athletes? And did you make any friends with any of the other sports, or were you hanging around with any of the other people from some of the other sports? Like, what's it like for us mere mortals that haven't been to an Olympics? Like, what's the village life? Like, I saw you guys were out you went on to nights out afterwards, didn't you, and stuff like that? Like there was pictures and stuff like in the
I
paper.
never did. It felt like rock stars for a
Yeah.
few days. No, so well, firstly we stayed out the village for the triathlon because obviously Hyde Park is quite a long way from Stratford. So and you had to go back and forward for briefing and all your recce's. So we actually stayed in a hotel on Hyde Park, which is brilliant. But after our medal event, we then went into the village. So we were only there for 4 or 5 nights, and it was absolutely brilliant. So we shared an apartment with Ben Ainsley and another sailor called Bart Simpson, who's the one who unfortunately passed away when there's America's Cup accident a few years ago. But yeah, Ben Ainsley was in our apartment, and he was he was great. But to honest with you, the actual village, we were so busy, we barely spent any time in it because we were doing media interviews or nights out. You could go to these very posh clubs that I'd never pay for normally, like China Whites, and get free drinks and get treated like a big time celebrity for a bit. So we did a lot of that. But we had a lot of Olympic sponsors, and that meant they wanted your time during that period. So we basically weren't in the Olympic Village at all. I was very much doing sponsorship occasions, going out to watch track and field in the evening, and then going to bed. But the village is cool. It's just, I guess it's a place where it's odd because you got all different shapes and sizes there. You got the gymnasts, you got the basketball players, you got the sprinters. So it's just an area of different people. But I really enjoyed it because it was all free. So you could go to McDonald's and order as many McDonald's burgers if you wanted, and then it was just a great fun place to be. But like I say, we weren't actually there for very long, and then we flew home and on a helicopter. Actually, the local company close to Leeds Bradford Airport said they'd take us back on a helicopter. So we flew back on a helicopter to Leeds, and then we went straight to another kind of party celebration in Millennium Square in Leeds City Centre. So the whole time after London 2012 was just, like everyone could say, a game changer. It honestly changed my life. But I actually got to know more people and more athletes when we did stuff like Superstars. So
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I remember watching that. You, Mo Farah, Anthony Joshua was there, wasn't he?
He was incredible.
Yeah, didn't he won it, didn't he?
Anthony Joshua, you won it, yeah. But it's all really short, fast stuff. So obviously Jimmy's incredible, and his 100 meters time was ridiculous. It was competitive. The funniest bit on that was Alistair got beaten by Pete Wilson, the shooter, in the 100 meters, and Alistair and Pete herself are really good friends now, but he never ever lets him live it down. Like
Really?
like every time he sees him, he's like, "I'll beat you in 100 meters." But that was brilliant. It's down in Bath, and that's when you really got to know people. And like Michael Jameson was a swimmer, got a silver medalist. Obviously Anthony Joshua, Pete Wilson, Trix Hodge, the rower, and we spent loads of time together with each other. And we went for some runs with Mo Farah. And that was when you really got to know the other athletes because everyone had well and truly finished their events and was up for a good time. And it was a really good fun event. I absolutely love that.
Did you stay in contact with Anthony Joshua since then? And did you have you been to any of his live boxing matches or anything like that?
No, I haven't. I should have done, definitely. I wish I made more of an effort to stay in contact with him. Mo Farah I've seen around a few places. And then and Pete Wilson I see occasionally, but no, not really. It's strange after Olympics again. Everyone goes all the separate ways and then comes back 4 years later.
Yeah. So you don't really. So basically, everyone's off doing their own thing, and then it's like you kind of have a bit of a catch up when you're at the next Olympics and stuff. But in between, it's like you're all over the place. You're training with your normal kind of crew, and that's it.
Yeah, definitely. You obviously have a little bit more celebration. When you go to kind of after Rio, for example, we went to the Manchester parade where everyone then comes out again, and you meet people at the Team GB ball or whatever. But then very quickly, that's another thing about sport, is very quickly everyone goes back to normal. By the time it goes past Christmas, everyone's next thinking about the next event, the World Championships or the Commonwealth Games the year after that. So pretty much it's amazing about how quickly athletes then have to reset and go again. And I did that very much after 2012 as well. I had a great time for 4 or 5 days and then came home, and then by Tuesday I was back in the pool doing a VO2 session because I had to try and win the World Championship. I was racing in Stockholm 3 weeks after London, so it was very much I had to go again.
You know, I can't remember if it was after London 2012 or roughly when it was, but I remember hearing that you and your brother went on a training camp with Team Sky in Mallorca, and you were doing some training with Team Sky back then, and there was, from what I had, obviously it was just rumours, but like you were thinking of potentially swapping to pro cycling. Like, when was that, and what was that? How did that all come about? And were you potentially thinking at that time of going into like pro cycling?
Yeah, we thought about it. So they contacted us after London 2012 and said, "Lads, you look like you got a great engine. Do you fancy it?" And then the next year we were just too busy. After 2012 we were too busy, and we couldn't really do it. You know, we were just far rushing all over the world and racing. So it would have been December 2013. We went to Mallorca on their camp, and they just Rod Edingworth was the one who kind of contacted us and was like, "Do you still fancy coming?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll go, definitely." So we went out to Mallorca, and we just did a bit of training with those guys. One thing I learned is, you know, I turned up to the Team Sky training camp with my bike box and was like, "Oh, I'll start building my bike now." I got to the hotel, and the mechanic was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm building a bike," and he's like, "Well, that doesn't happen here, you know. That's all done for you." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not used to this." And then stuff like that, you know, I'd get my bottles ready in the morning and be like, "What are you doing? Just go and get a bottle from a table. It's all ready for you." I remember everything being done for you so easy. And we went on the camp, and it was weird because you very much, I'm used to going to like you do, you know, you go to Mallorca or something, you go on Strava, you find the loops, you find out where
Yeah.
you're going, but it's all just done for you. You just follow the car and basically got told to go hard when it was time to go hard, and then go easy. You felt like a bit of a robot. You got really well looked after, and I really enjoyed it. And we did a little bit of a kind of test up the Sacalobra. I dropped Alistair that day. He wasn't very fit, but I well and truly dropped him. And rode past a load of the other guys, and I think they were pretty impressed. But they just said to us at that point, if you really want to do it, we'll come back and do some good testing and see, you know, what kind of level you could be. Because they were very much like, to work out if you're going to be good, you basically need to do an effort at the start of a ride, do a long 4-hour ride, and do an effort at the end of the ride, and see if you can back it up.
Yeah.
But at that point, we were really committed to triathlon. I wanted to carry on to 2016 and never really explored it. So it kind of fizzled out after that.
You know, you said you were doing an effort up Sacalobra. Was that like basically where the whole team and like the coaching staff there at Team Sky were like, right guys, today we're going to ride to Sacalobra and we're all going to go full gas up the climb and just see what we can do it in? Or was it like they just took or was it like not as serious as that? Like, what was it like that day?
No, they were all doing very specific efforts. So they were very much like, they didn't. One thing that amazed me about that is they all kind of got to the bottom, and it was all that very much like, "Oh, I'm stopping for wee. I'm taking my jacket off. Oh, I'm doing this. You know, I'm tying my shoes up."
Yeah.
So they could all start at different times. Alice and myself were the only ones who really committed, and we actually rode past like Bernard Islund people. I remember riding past them.
Was he going
Yeah,
hard as
Tim
well?
Kerrison.
Was he
Uh,
definitely getting stuck in? It's all right. You can.
Yeah, he was going relatively hard, definitely. No, he was definitely going relatively hard at that point. But it was before Christmas, you know, these guys were definitely not very fit. I would say at that point, I couldn't tell how they were all going, but there weren't a lot of the good guys had already gone home as well by that point of the training camp. But yeah, they were, again, back to what we were saying before about people training, they were very much like, "No, I'm doing this specific
Yeah.
effort," whereas we just walloped up the climb.
How do you know how fast you got up it? Did they time you or anything, or did you not even know? You just like went hard.
Yeah, I just went hard. And I remember getting to the top and being quite happy with my time, but Tim Kerrison being like, "Oh, Bradley Wiggins did it in this time," or something, and being like, "Oh, okay, that's fast." But yeah, I was quite impressed with my time. For a while before Strava got even more popular, I think I was up there.
So
Has Tom Pidcock got the time now?
I think he has something like that. There's a bit of controversy about that because apparently he got paced up it by a motorbike. So people are like saying whether or not it's fair game or not.
Yeah.
I think Ed
Well,
Laverick's
yeah.
not happy.
Huh. I'll ask Pitters. He also trains down here. Talking about that, it's amazing. Obviously, the Tour of Remedies on him, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the guy who won, Sam Watson's from about 5 miles from here. He's from the local chain gangs. And the other guy who won yesterday, Matthew Brennan, he's also from Yorkshire as well. So the Tour of Remedy, the first two winners are both from Yorkshire.
Wow. That Matt Brennan's quite young, isn't he? Is he like 19 or something like that?
He's like 19. I did a ride with him a Sunday group ride with him about a year ago, and he was impressive then. Yeah, he's good. He's really good.
Really? You know, when you were in Mallorca as well then, so at the start when you were out there, was Wiggins doing a bit of riding with you? Because at the time, back then, he was kind of like the man, wasn't he? You know, like post 2012, like coming off the back of that season where he was like winning all the stage races. Was he doing some training with you out in Mallorca? And what was he like as a person, if you got a chance to speak to him?
Wiggins was only there for a day when I was there, and so I barely saw him, to be honest with you. We were much very there after he went, and I guess at that point I got the feeling with him that he was like the leader of the whole. And while he was there, all the kind of younger riders were a bit more serious, and then as soon as he left, the younger riders kind of messed around a little bit more.
Well, it was like the school teacher's gone, like kind of thing. Like, like the
Yeah.
substitute teacher's been rolled out now. We can like mess around a bit.
I think it was definitely. I felt a bit like that as well. It was a very different environment. It was a weird environment for what I come from. In that, obviously we're very motivated ourselves, and then like I've got to do this for my own results. But then there was very much a team environment of like I'm getting told to do this training. They didn't really have much ownership on their training.
So was that kind of like part of the reason why you decided not to pursue it? And did you, or was there never really any thought that that was even a viable option? You just went there for a bit of a laugh to kind of see almost like what our Team Sky doing, because at the time they're obviously having such good success at the Tour de France. Were you thinking, well, we might learn a thing or two from this to take our own training to the next level, and we'll just go and use it as a bit of a scouting mission? Or was it actually you were thinking, you and Alistair were like, actually, should we see whether or not we could make it as pro cyclists and give that a crack?
No, I actually reckon by that point we very much were committed to triathlon, and I never really considered becoming a pro cyclist. It was very much, can we go there and learn something from those guys? And it was just quite a cool experience. So yeah, no, we never really explored it. I love triathlon, and the problem, like I said before, it comes around so quick. So by that point, it was a Commonwealth Games coming up in Glasgow, and you're like, wow, that's another massive opportunity. So I don't want to turn that down. And also, I didn't want to go and be not competitive. If I couldn't go to cycling and be really competitive at the front, I didn't want to do it. Why would I? Because I was winning Olympic medals in triathlon.
You know, when you in between 2012 and 2016 and everything, so you guys are, you and your brother and like Gomez and all that are coming off the back of like hugely successful race and like big, like really successful campaign in the last like year or so leading up to that. Was your mindset in the races from 2012 to 2016, like when you were traveling to the races, especially if Alistair were there, were you thinking like you knew almost like there's no way you could lose unless something was out of your control, like you punch it or you had, like a mechanical or something? Were you that confident because you knew what you were doing in training and you just got so much more confidence every race? The fact that you were just always on the podium between you, that like you thought, none of these guys are going to beat us. Like, we know we're better than them. Like, what was it like that? Or did you actually doubt yourself sometimes before the races and you thought, cool, I'm going to have a good race today if I want to beat some of these other guys? Like, how were you in your mindset?
Oh no, I definitely wasn't that confident. I guess the most confident I've ever been was probably in the start line in London 2012. After all the training gone perfectly, I was very much like, it's going to take someone really good to beat me today. If I'm honest, I knew Alistair training well, so I knew he was going to be hard to beat. And Gomez, I genuinely didn't expect him to step up that level. I didn't think he'd be able to run that fast, but it was unbelievable, his performance there. I guess into the rest of the next 3 years, no, you always doubt yourself. You always think, the ideal scenario for us would be there'd be a pack of 5 or 6 of you out the water, you push it on, and it come down to the run, and you Gomez is always going to be there because he's a good swimmer. But there's always that doubt of what happens if I get beaten up at the first buoy? What happens if I have a bad swim start? What happens if it comes together and I have to run against Mario Mola or Frodo or Brad Carterfelt? Those guys might have had a really soft bike and be able to catch us up, and then it's an unfair running race because they're fresh and I'm not. So there's definitely always those doubts. There's no way I was going to race going, I've got a podium here. It's just a question of what colour medal it's going to be.
So you were kind of always a bit like worried about the others. And do you think that was what motivated you in the fact that when you were in your training as well, you kind of knew that you kind of felt like, I need to do this training because otherwise the others will catch up to me, they'll beat me. And it was kind of like almost a bit like more, not the confidence that kind of took you from race to race, but more the fear of that you could get beaten by the others or something could happen that kind of drove you to that success and to keep the momentum going in training then?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you need that, because if you don't have that motivation, your training's going to suffer a little bit. You will start to not train as well, not push as hard. And I remember in 2015 as well. So I came off the back of, I ran a decent Armagh 5K and ran a 14:01 or something early doors. I went to Abu Dhabi and got absolutely nailed. I think I was fifth or sixth. And then we went to training camp to Queenstown and trained really hard for a few weeks with Varga and Phil Graves at the time in 2015. And I probably got the best shape I've ever been. So I think occasionally I needed that as a reminder that those people were still chasing you, and you've got to get everything right. And you can't just go for the emotions in training. Not that I was doing that, but you've got to think about your training and make sure you do the real hard top end sessions.
Yeah. Looking ahead or back to Rio 2016, the story that I've heard was obviously like you and your brother had like a textbook swimming bike. You managed to get away in a breakaway with probably, I don't know, was there about 6 or 7 others, something like that? There was something about,
I think it's about 11 or 12 by that point.
was there that many? Was there? Oh, right. So a little group of 11 or 12. You had obviously Vincent Louis in there, who's shown himself since then. He's got some awesome results. I think Aaron Royal was here in that group as well with you guys.
Yeah, Roy was there.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure. Oh, Schumann, I know he was there. So you had a really good...
Ben Canute.
Ben Canute. Was he
Varga.
there?
Yeah. Van Riel.
Van Riel. Yeah, so some real big hitters now, like basically a who's who of triathlon if you look back over the last like 7 or 8 years. And then on the run, you and Al next to each other, I heard that you told him like to knock it back a bit or something because you had a gap or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. You'll have to tell us the story and if it is true. And then he put a dig in and almost like kind of like attacked you after you said that. What was the story with that? And do you think had you have not said that and you'd have just kept quiet, you could have probably taken him down that day?
Yeah, that's the biggest regret I think of my sporting career, is that I show weakness towards Alistair. So the story with that is we went into Rio worried about Vince. Vince had not, he was good the year before. Did he win the test event or close to Gomez the year before? And he hadn't trained, he hadn't raced for 4 or 5 months beforehand. And we thought, what is going on here? Is he just peaking for this one race? He's committing everything. I'm really worried about him. Obviously Gomez had crashed about a month before the game, so he was out. So Vince was the one we were really scared about if it was a swim bike breakaway. But that session I told you about in Brazil beforehand, I was absolutely flying. I was winning better than Alistair, so I thought, right, I've got a chance here. We started the run. I knew it was hot, and I'd actually had heat exhaustion in Gold Coast in April 2016. So I knew I'd have to be really careful on the run and not go over that line. And we dropped Vince actually quite early on the run, thinking, right, okay, between Alistair and myself, at about 5K in the run, I said to Alistair, right, okay, relax, it's between us. And for me, that was more like, it's between us, let's not blow each other up, let's not risk these 2 medals. And he just saw that as a sign of weakness and pushed it on. And I think up to that point, Alistair would have doubted if he could beat me because I'd beaten him in training. And also, I also think I pushed the bike a bit too hard in Rio as well. I was the one who did the majority of the work and the first 3 laps of really driving it. If I had my chance again with that fitness again, I would have played a bit of a smarter card on the bike, and then on the run, I would have actually shown no weakness. And I think it could have been a different race.
Do you think as well that he's got a psychological advantage over you in the races, knowing that you were always his like younger brother? Because growing up with someone who was obviously 2 or 3 years younger than you, you're always going to have a bit of that extra strength, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously not until you both get to being a man, but then psychologically, that must surely help a little bit, do you reckon? Or do you think like not?
No, I think definitely. I think he's always had that psychological advantage of being the older brother. I've looked up to, the one who I've been like, okay, he's more expected to beat me. So to me, to beat him is almost against the norm. So yeah, he's always had that advantage. And I don't know if I could have seen a psychologist back in the day to kind of work on that, or just get that out over sessions. I just wish occasionally I'd been a bit more confident and believed that I could have beaten him. And yeah, it could have been different. London 2012, I pretty much knew he was going to beat me on that day already because he was training so well before that. But
Yeah.
Rio was my real opportunity.
Do you think like then so you think that was like he basically had that, or you lacked that little bit of confidence that you could have ideally done with, like if it was someone else, so if it wasn't Alistair, if you were in that situation again and you just treated him the same as a normal competitor, like let's just say that was Vincent Louis and you were running Alistair's Bindrol, you obviously wouldn't have said, would you have said anything to him then at that point? Or would you have just been like, hanging in there, and if you felt good, if you sussed a sign of weakness and you would have put a dig in, or like how would you have
Oh,
played it out?
definitely. If that had been any other person in Rio 2016, apart from Alistair, I think I'd have beaten him. I wouldn't have shown weakness. If they had the same capability of Alistair, which is a different name, I think I'd have beaten them because I wouldn't have shown that weakness, and they wouldn't have got the confidence out of me struggling a little bit, and it would have been a different result.
Did you ever think that Alistair might let you have it because he's got like 1 gold medal already? So he was like, "Come on, Johnny, like you
Oh
can have
no,
this."
we all know Alistair. There's absolutely no way of that happening in the Olympics.
Really?
I think he would have seen that as a bit of a letdown to Olympics as well. I think in that, I think you should almost for the Olympic Games, you should both race to the end, and the best man or woman wins. So no, and even if he's on, if it was a third chance, he'd still want to be a 3-time Olympic medalist, gold medalist. So I don't think it would change much. Maybe if he started to get into double figures, he might think about it.
Yeah. But I guess I know what you mean. Like with the Olympics and that, then it is almost like so. Basically, what you're saying is that he would want to go flat out, and everyone goes flat out, and the Olympics rewards who's best on the day, and there's no like, I've already won one kind of thing. Like it would be nice. It would make a nice story, wouldn't it? But like, would have looked good for the pictures, wouldn't it, if there was you two coming across the line first and second?
It'd make it good, made it look good. But yeah, I think the Olympics is all about the best man wins.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Did you manage to watch any other events at that Rio Olympics, like any of the other sports?
Yeah, so we went to watch. The only thing we actually watched, again, really towards the end of the Olympics for that one, really towards the end. So much so that when we flew into Rio, we went on a 10, 11-day training camp, and the night we flew into Rio to fly back out again, it was the opening ceremony. So we were that far into it. We were right towards the end. But we watched the track and field a few times. Was that when Bolt was part of the relay?
Yeah.
And that one? Yeah. So we were there watching that. And Rio was a different Olympics to London in that, firstly, London, you also home Olympic Games. So you're being a British medalist, you could get you anywhere. In Rio, it was a lot harder to get tickets and things. And also, it was really hard work to get anywhere. If you wanted to go to the stadium, you had to spend an hour or so in a bus in traffic trying to get there. So it wasn't as easy as London as just popping and walking across the Olympic Park to the stadium. So we saw a few things, but to honest, we were right near the end. We went to the closing ceremony. Obviously, it was really, really cool, but it rained. I remember that. And then we flew home on the British Airways plane that everyone else flies home on. So that was really cool. Although it was basically a combination of athletes that were wanting to sleep, or athletes that had been on too many nights out and definitely wanted to sleep. So, the flight on the way home was interesting because it's all, if you get a gold medal, you go first class. Silver medal, you're business class, and you go further and further back. So, if you got no medalist, you're a bit disappointed. It makes you worse. Your economy at the back. Yeah, your economy at the back. But it's quite a cool flight, with everyone together. But like I said, a lot of people are very tired, and I remember arriving at Heathrow, walking out on the stairs, and it being really bright, and everyone being like, "Whoa!" But, I've got to wake up now. I've got to talk to some journalists, and we flew back on a plane from Heathrow. British Airways plane back to Leeds, and then that was it. Then, so I was just pleased to be home by that point.
Obviously seeing Alex Yee do the London Marathon the other day, 2:11 something. Got to ask you, what did you think of that? And also, in your peak when you were running, able to train, like you said, 10, 11 runs a week, something like that. And with your background in cross country, normally that lends yourself well to being a great marathon runner. What do you think you could have potentially done with 3 or 4 months of committed training? Say you got to Christmas and you decided to knock your swimming and biking down a little bit and focus on the marathon. What would you have liked to have done?
Firstly, I think it's a really good run. I know he was slightly disappointed, but yeah, he dealt with the pressure really well. There's a lot of expectation on him. He also trained really well, and it looked like the heat got to him in the last bit, and it's a lot hotter. I've got a lot of friends who not running as fast as that, but trying to run 2:15, 2:16, and then struggled with 3 or 4 minutes off that. And I think that's because of the heat.
I went
So
down there. It was hot. It
yeah,
got out.
was it hot?
Yeah, it was. It got quite like muggy in the second half, definitely. And like you said, everyone I know who was aiming to run like similar times to like that 2:15 to 2:25 ish, all seemed to run slower, and everyone like than what they were hoping for. So I think it was definitely the conditions definitely affected people.
Yeah.
Like
And the marathon's a hard one for me because I think I've seen firsthand of what people need to do for miles. And I all they did miles, I never got anywhere near that kind of like 40K run involving some efforts. But to answer the question, I think at my best, my run coach has always said I could have run down to 13:30 for 5K and like low 28s for 10K.
yeah.
About that kind of ballpark. Definitely. I was doing the sessions. It was more than capable for that.
So it's got to put you in the mix for you would like surely been looking to target a 2:10. Do you reckon? Imagine if you'd carbon shoot.
Yeah,
That would have
I've
been
always said that. Yeah, 2:10, 2:12, I would say. Pre-carbon shoes, maybe now with carbon shoes, about 2:10. My absolute best, obviously, not that now. But yeah, marathon's hard, like I say, because you're never quite sure how you're going to feel after 30K, are you? So for me, it'd be a lot easier given a kind of rough ballpark for that 10K, I'd say.
What kind of like puts you off a bit about doing an Ironman? Because like when I kind of like said to you at the start, and you were kind of like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Like, is it just the pure distance side of things, or like what is it about it? Because I don't think they're as bad as what you probably think they are, because you haven't done one yet. Like before you do one, I think you always kind of think it's going to be a lot worse than what it is.
Genuinely, what puts me off is what has put me off was watching Alistair do Kona.
Really?
That's what's put me off. So sat at home with the coverage on, up late in the night, trying to watch it, and him just blowing apart has made me feel, wow, it just looks like a long, 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 long day out. You're right. I keep saying I'm not going to try it, and I know it's hard because when you do a sprint distance race, you think, "Oh, I can't do double that to the Olympic distance race." When you do
Yeah.
Olympic distance race, you think, "Oh, I can't do double that to do a half Ironman," and the same for obviously a half Ironman. So, just for me, it's just a distance. It just seems like a long, and the thought of running a marathon off after bike, but it's different, isn't it? You're not running a marathon
Yeah.
as hard as if you're going to do a normal marathon.
Exactly.
So yeah, I'm coming around to it now that I've got through a 70.3 without blowing up. So maybe in a few years' time, an Ironman. But I'm
Me.
still not quite sure if I'd ever competitively do an Ironman, or if I'll just do one to get around.
Oh, mate, you've got to do one competitive. And to me, it seems crazy that with Leeds on your doorstep, that you're not tempted to do that, because the British races and the Welsh races, from when I've been a part of them, the atmosphere has been absolutely crazy. And I just think if you were to do that race, knowing what the atmosphere has normally been like for me, just like as a Brit, you in Leeds, in your hometown, racing there would be absolutely incredible. And I think you might enjoy it,
Yeah, no, yeah, the Leeds one tempts me, although it's a really hard course. But and Alice sits really when you're an Ironman, which do one which is over with as quick as possible, and that's definitely not Leeds. But I think Leeds does tempt me, but at that point, I'll be back doing super tri racing. I want to have another at least a year of trying to be competitive super tri stuff. I really enjoy racing that. And obviously we've got our team, and making me a British team next year. So I really want to do that, and I can't. Doing Ironman and super tri racing is probably a bit of a push.
Oh, no, you can't do that. Yeah, like you want to stick to one, don't you? So will you be targeting LA in 2028?
Absolutely, definitely not. No, my Olympic time is definitely up now. I feel like I've been there and done that now. So it's very much a focus on enjoying races, so some super tri races, some half Ironman races, middle distance races, and just targeting ones that I want to do for a bit of fun and enjoyment. I feel like I've done that commitment of the Olympic cycles now, and yeah, I'll leave that to other people.
Just before we end it, I've just got a couple of questions. One of them is like, do you have any regrets about like your like triathlon career? Is there anything that you wished you had done or you could change? Maybe not necessarily
Uh,
regret, but things that you might have thought like, I wish I had just tried this, or anything going for like looking back.
yeah, I guess the easy one for me is um, uh, well, the biggest regret is obviously for the in Rio was showing weakness. But I may occasionally wish that I celebrated my victories and enjoyed it more. As in, I don't mean I'm not the kind of person who goes on nights out, but enjoys it as in had time to step back and go, wow, that was amazing. I was very much the person who's on to the next thing the whole time. Um, and I come back from London, another goal, next race, another goal. There's no time to stop and think about it. So I wish I kind of celebrated it more and taken it
How
in.
would how would you have like celebrated it and taken it in a bit more? Like, what do you reckon you'd have done then? Would you have like taken a couple of weeks off training, kind of thing? Do you reckon, and gone on holiday and just like taken some proper downtime? Would it have been more like that?
I think just the ability to give myself flexibility in training. I'm the kind of person who is so routine focused. I have to, if it's Tuesday, I should be doing this. If it's Thursday, I should be doing this style of training. So I guess just ability to have that flexibility of going, oh, okay, you don't have to do a chain game on a Thursday. You can go out and ride a gravel bike or keep it fun. But I just couldn't do that in those years. It was very much I have to stick to what I know works and what I've always done.
Was that because of that fear of like worrying about the others catching back up kind of thing? Do you think like thinking like if I don't get back into it, I'm not going to be winning and they're going to be like beating me?
I don't know if it's a fear of that or they'll catch me up. I actually think I'm having this fear of letting myself down. My parents have always been very much, if you can do it properly. And obviously that starts from a young age.
Yeah.
So I think I've always been like, if I'm not doing that training session, am I actually committed as I should be? Am I letting myself down? So I think it's very much that fear that I'm not committed enough and I'm not letting myself, that I am letting myself down by not training hard enough.
Ah, right. And the other question that I was going to have was, how do you think in your like you and Gomez and your brother and like peak, that kind of like peak ITU career that you guys had when you were on an absolute like ball? How do you think you would have compared in the ITU races now if you would have like taken you guys back then, put you in the races now, carbon shoes, you had all the equipment and everything like they had, like who do you think comes on top? And I'll tell you what I think afterwards as well, because
Firstly, I think the racing would have been different. I honestly think it would have been very hit and miss for Hayden and Alex, the people where they actually made the lead pack by the end of the bike. And I think probably more times than not there would have been a breakaway because with Varga leading out the swim, the swims were way faster than they are now
were they?
because Varga changed it. Yeah, the swims are way faster. I'd say now there's more good people, but no one really good to take it on.
How
Varga's
hard?
different level.
How hard was Varga taking it on then in his peak? Like, and what was he like in the water then when you were training with him? Like, what kind of like sets was he doing, and how hard was he taking it on? Like when he was like
Oh,
full peak.
Varga's different level. He could go to the pool and knock out 1300s from the wall in 61, 62 off not much rest. But he was a really good open water swimmer, and he would just get to the front and line it out. So I haven't done a swim in years where I've been on the feet in a single line going, this is hard. Whereas Varga, you could, after the first buoy, you would be in the line going, I hope they don't lose their feet because it's going to
Really?
be hard to come around.
So like
Yeah.
you were in the, so it never settled. You would just be like on the limit like the whole time.
On the minute, the whole time. Yeah. And then we'd get out the front on the bike and you would very quickly form a working group most times where it was just real hard 450 watts turns just for the whole bike.
Yeah.
It was just on and you weren't catching. So that's the difference to now. So I think the swim bike was harder. I think when it comes to the run, I think again it would be really competitive most of the time. And I still believe if you convert it to carbon shoes, Alistair's run in London was still the fastest run there's ever been.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I think that as well. I think that like it would have been amazing to see you guys like with Varga, like you say, ripping the races now, because obviously the way you would have raced it then would have been you wouldn't have wanted to wait for the run, would you? You would have tried to put them out of contention before the run. So it would have
Oh,
made
definitely.
it so exciting because you guys would have really lit it up on the swim and the bike, and it would have made it a much more rounded triathlon. I think it's almost a bit of a shame as well that the courses nowadays are so flat and like they don't really allow for exciting racing. So if people have got a strong bike, like if the bike's your strength, you're a strong swim biker, it's almost like you're a bit wasted. You just can't maximize it, can you? Like,
I don't know, I agree. I think there's a few things going on. I think firstly, the swim's not fast enough, like I said. There's more people kind of around the front, and there's no one really taking it on. The second thing is culturally now, the pike it's been caught so many times that everyone's like, well, what's the point of working when you get caught
yeah,
anyway? Got to save ourselves for the run. And the courses don't help it. We had the days of Madrid, you just hit it up the first hill and off you went. Even Rio was a brilliant course on the first hill. Stockholm, you had to throw your bike around the cobbled corners. Big pack it was a nightmare. So those courses are all gone now. So it does make it very difficult.
so when you were doing those races then back then, were you actually like properly giving it something on the bike? So when you got away in a breakaway, it was like, were you riding it pretty much like flat out? Like, would you start the run a bit like you were a bit gassed when you started the run?
Oh, definitely. Oh, and obviously it's very varied. The first couple of laps of the bike used to be really hard, really, really full on to get
Yeah.
to establish that breakaway. And then it would more settle down. I'd say the slight difference to now is a lot of the time those breakaways, there's like, say, 6, 7, 8 of you. So it would be quite a consistent effort. It'd be very much you turn the front, roll to the back. It's never easy, but it's not got any of the out the corners, 1,000 watts, 10 seconds, like settle down. Next corner, 1,000 watts. So there's no that massive big jumps. It was very much more of a consistent effort. And
Yeah.
I think that actually suited me more. I think nowadays the bike is slightly different and it has that really punchiness to it.
I'm actually racing your brother tomorrow at the Tracker 360. So if we're together at some point coming into the end, I ain't going to tell him to knock the pace down a bit.
No, definitely. Well, he'll probably shout at you at some point for getting away or something going else too, or for cutting him up on the corner. But it'll be his fault. But he'll shout at you anyway. But no, the track was brilliant. Good luck with that. The same before I did a gravel race. I did a gravel national champs. Last year, I absolutely loved it. I didn't qualify for the Olympics, obviously, and was looking for something else to do. And then I finished chain gang. I thought, I'm going to do that on a Thursday. So I went up on a Saturday. I went down to the local bike shop, bought all the puncture plug things, the sealant, and thought, right, I don't know what gravel is. I googled gravel tire pressure,
Yeah.
and off I went, and I absolutely loved it. I was brilliant on the first climb, got a bit distance down the first ascent, and then was like, right, I got my eye in now. I know what I'm doing, and then I held on, and I thought, was I just in the end or something? I can't remember.
Give me an idea of what the descent was like then. So what are these guys like on the gravel descents? Like, are they like in the corner like they're on rails?
Yeah, no, they're corner fast, really fast. And so it took me a while to work out, one, how far you can push it. And secondly, Alistair told me not to, so the place where I did the national champs, there's like a ridge down the middle, which has got all the stones in where everyone punches.
Yeah.
And I was determined basically to either stay in one of the tracks, the left or the right, and not cross the middle bit because that's where you puncture. But then it becomes impossible because then everyone uses the whole path and you can't corner fast enough. So I just learned to full on commit, and you just got to commit, and you got to think, if they can get around that, then I can as well.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to give yourself the first few K to get into that and learn, and then choose your routes and learn how fast you go around. And I got better. I would say, and where I did it, I was the most improved by miles.
And when you did it, it was kind of like, you were in quite a punchy race, I think, weren't it? Because the national champs is at about 100, 120K, something like that. So it's a bit like full gas, kind of like most of it, isn't it?
Mine was really punchy. It was Connor Swift and Ben Swift, just both two-time in the group the whole way, basically. Just one of them went, next one went, and then we chased them down, off we go. Then Ben Swift would go until Connor Swift blew, and then I was in the group. So Connor Swift went, and he's unbelievably strong.
He was in the breakaway with Pogacar and someone else. I can't remember, Strada Bianchi earlier this year. So,
Pitters was there. Yeah, no, he's a strong boy. And then he went ahead, and then it kind of settled down because he just rode on the front, did like 420 watts for the remaining half an hour, and we then raced each other. But everyone gets punches as well. So if you stay in the game and don't get a puncher, you'll do all right.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. That. Well, thanks for the chat anyway, Johnny. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and I'll let you get on because I've taken up quite a lot of your time. But it's been awesome to chat to you about some of your racing and past results, and what's next going forward for you just before we go.
Well, no, thank you very much for chatting. Good luck on it's Friday, isn't it? Yeah, for the 360.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Good luck. And then beat Alistair. What's next for me? I'm going to do the challenge championships in San Marino, and I'm doing it for two reasons. One, to have another good go at that distance, and then secondly, because it's Varga's last race. So Varga's also been a massive part of my career, and I wanted to go and race with him one more time. So yeah, it's kind of two reasons for going.
Oh, sounds awesome. Best of luck in that, and I hope you have a great year, and good luck at the Super League at the end of the season as well.
No, perfect. Cheers, man. Enjoyed that. Thank you.